Welcome to the Beyond Homelessness podcast, a series that shares the stories of young people who have experienced homelessness and those who work within the system designed to support them. Beyond Homelessness is a platform for young people to be heard, to tell stories that inspire, to have a voice at the table and see themselves represented. We believe that stories are a form of magic, that they can create new worlds, convey emotions, and inspire ideas. The stories you will hear in this series not only demonstrate the strength and resilience of the people sharing them, but will also get you thinking about viewpoints beyond your own and challenge you to consider the change that needs to take place in order to build a future where youth homelessness does not exist. Well, hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Beyond Homelessness podcast. We're your hosts, Matt and Ethan. Mate, it's good to have you back again for another episode.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. And we are joined by an absolute legend of a young person and someone who's come through Project Youth's transitional housing program. Quinn, welcome.
Thank you very much.
How are you going?
I'm going very good, thank you. How about you?
Oh, my friend, doing great. Glad that the three of us are in the room together to shoot the breeze, have a yarn, and tell some stories. It's going to be good.
Yes.
So Quinn, you and I have known each other for a while, but for Ethan and our listeners tuning in who may not know you that well, you're able to just give us a bit of a bit of who you are and your journey.
Yeah, awesome. I definitely can. I'm Quinn. I'm 17 years old. I've navigated the Project Youth housing system since I was about 15. I first moved into the refuges, and then after I turned 16, I moved into the transitional housing program.
Nice. For those people who don't know what a transitional housing program is, can you give us a bit of a definition?
Yeah, I'd say it's supported but independent living.
Yeah.
You live by yourself, sometimes with housemates, sometimes on your own, and you have support from your caseworker, those around you.
Amazing. Awesome.
So I guess in a moment we're going to jump in and talk a little bit about your story and your journey here with us, all the challenges you faced, and I guess just you in general. So are you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Alrighty.
Beautiful.
I'll start us off with question 1. What kind of stigma or preconceived notions of homelessness did you come across?
Well, I suppose there's always the one that homeless people are homeless because they do drugs or they drink alcohol or that they're all drug users, when realistically that isn't the case. I found that stigma was applied a lot towards me.
Yeah.
That everyone thought I was drinking at the age of 14, 15, 16. Realistically, I've never had a sip of alcohol in my life because it's not something I'm interested in, and it's what caused the downfall of my family. So I became very aware that it wasn't something I wanted. I also got labelled as a disobedient teenager. I didn't want to come home. I was always out late. I missed school, and I was just burdened with the label of dishonest, disobedient.
The naughty kids.
The naughty kids, yeah. I was put in the naughty corner all the time. In my schooling, I wasn't the smartest, so there was no reason for the school to be concerned about my progress, because it was never something realistically that was that good.
Okay, yeah. So it was like there were signs, but people were misinterpreting them.
Yeah.
So I think, you've mentioned before, like being at the park and staying out late, and people kind of saw that as, or perceived that as, oh, Quinn's not following the rules, like naughty kid. But you've kind of reflected that actually, no, the motivation behind that was, hey, home didn't feel overly safe for me and I was not wanting to return there.
Yeah.
And so it seems like, and I guess this is what stigma is, right? It's people's ignorance, their lack of understanding around, and I guess lack of generosity in assumption, like rather than kind of saying, oh, you're doing the wrong thing, asking the question like, how it, like, what is going on for you? And it seems that the school missed that. I know you've mentioned to me before, Quinn, like family, when you left your home, there were family members who kind of labelled you as disobedient, and you said something that really struck me. It was, they didn't understand what was happening behind closed doors. They didn't understand what they couldn't see.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's where the stigma really kind of came for you.
Yeah, absolutely, because looking into a household isn't looking into there's no clear glass. It's all tinted glass. You're never going to see the truth, whether you're a guest in the home. You're never going to see exactly what it's like, because there is a facade. And you find that a lot when you walk into a household where there is domestic violence, and suddenly it's all well and you can't see anything wrong. Well, the person must be lying. It can't be that bad.
Yeah.
That's something you do see a lot.
And was that some of your experience, that lack of trust of what you were kind of saying, hey, this is what's going on for me? There was a lack of belief?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because we looked generic from the outside.
Everything seemed normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just on that as well, something that I was thinking about that whole time you said. Like, how do you overcome that if you're hearing it so much?
With hearing it so much, I definitely lost the belief that what I was going through was real.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that bad. I always told myself, it's not that bad.
Okay.
It was actually a professional that I opened up to turned to me and said, actually, that's fucked.
Yeah.
Said that to me straight up.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe that isn't right. And it was comparing my story to the stories of kids. You heard, oh, they went to a sick birthday party on the weekend, and here's what happened, and this was their holiday, and here's how it went. And when you compare it to your own, you're like, oh, that's not.
Yeah.
That's awfully different.
Yeah.
And then growing up, material value isn't everything, but it was noticing the differences. Noticing how you were treated, the differences. You go over to a friend's house and notice how their parents treated you, and it was just a contrast.
Yeah, which just goes to show like how important validation is, right? Because I guess, gaslighting is a huge thing. We talk about it a lot, but we can also gaslight ourselves, can't we? Like, oh well, maybe this is normal. Maybe everything is fine. Maybe this is all in my head. But it sounds like it was super important for you to experience that moment where a professional said, no, this is something important, and this is something,
I guess it's hard. Sorry to cut you off, but I guess it's hard as well as if that's what you live with, right? Like you don't know any different.
It becomes normalized.
Yeah, it becomes super normal until you go to that friend's house and you're like, oh, this doesn't happen at mine. Like, oh, why is this? And then obviously speaking to someone professional, it kind of gives you a better understanding of that emotion and that feeling of, oh, that felt different.
It absolutely was my normal. I didn't know any different. It was how I lived my life since I was born. It's just how it was. It wasn't until I was about 7 and a kid asked me a fairly sensitive question, and he goes, does your family do that? Does your family do this? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, what do you mean? Why would they do that?
Yeah, well, okay.
And I was like, that's not normal.
Yeah.
He's
why
like,
wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? Like, this is normal. And he goes, no, it's not. And I just sort of sat there, and I think that was the realization of something's not right.
Maybe,
Something's not right, but I'm not sure what.
Okay.
And that's powerful, and such an important, I think, challenge for us to consider is our normal is not always
Someone else's. Yeah.
Which again, and we've talked about this on the podcast before, the need to share stories, to have open communication, to be able to feel safe, to be vulnerable, to talk about that stuff is where we learn and where we can start to experience new perspectives. Yeah, that's powerful, Quinn. Thanks. So Quinn, before, when you were sharing a bit about your story, you spoke about kind of moving through the Project Youth housing program, being in the refuges, moving into transitional housing. Can you share more about that program and how it changed your circumstances, how it empowered you even with everything that was going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So moving into the transitional housing program gave me stability. The current program I'm in is 2 years long. I have certain housing for 2 years.
Yeah.
You can focus on your current goals while you're there. That really empowered me because I never had the opportunity to settle down and just focus on something. I couldn't think of the future. I could only think of the now. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when we were talking last week, you were sharing about, you know, you come into a refuge, which is like the immediate place that you can go when you're experiencing homelessness, and they're asking you questions about your future goals, and you're like, I don't have capacity to even think about that. But it sounds like and like you said, stable, certain housing for 2 years kind of opens up the possibility to start thinking future, because I guess from what you've shared with me, when you're experiencing homelessness in that moment, you're in survival mode. You're like, I'm dealing with now. Like, there's nothing beyond that.
Yeah. I was definitely put in the zone of, hey, you've got to find food for tonight. You can't find, like, you won't be able to find food for tomorrow, the day after. You've got to focus on tonight. But living in transitional housing gave me the stability and capacity I needed to apply for a job that I've worked consistently in for 2 years now.
Amazing.
Apply for a second job even that I'm loving. It's given me the ability to put food on the table for certain. Sure, there's still financially rough times, but the most important thing is having a roof over your head. So, yeah.
You also mentioned earlier, like, you know, school, I guess because of everything that was happening in your life, you know, your school attendance and I guess school achievement was suffering. But that also, like, transitional housing also helped that as well, didn't it?
When I first moved into the refuges, I didn't think I was going to complete my high schooling, and I thought, well, once I find a job, I'm just going to drop out. My attendance wasn't all that good when I was in the refuges, and albeit it wasn't brilliant when I moved into transitional housing either, because realistically you still have challenges you face in transitional housing. I was a 16-year-old living the life of an adult, paying groceries, paying rent,
being forced to grow up
far too fast. But it gave me the opportunity to expand my interests, which included my education. I was able to learn what I wanted to. I completed my year 12, which so many people had told me I'd never do, just because I never had the stability to do so.
Which I think brings us back to stigma, right? Like, I think people could look at disengagement from school and just think, oh, another teenager who doesn't like school, which wasn't the case for you at all. It was, hey, this is an important goal, but there was a time in your life where you only had capacity to deal with the now and not the later.
Yeah, absolutely. Scrap that. Lost my train of thought.
Oh, fair enough.
Well, I've got a question if I can jump in.
Yeah.
I guess me, again, thinking and listening to your story, me not being from transitional or having that experience or even the crisis experience, what, like you said, oh, you never thought you were going to finish year 12. I'd love to understand the mental and the emotional toll that it can play on some young people going through that. And obviously I know that a crisis is such a short stay, and then you go to a brand new stay. Obviously there's an emotional and again, the stability, like how did you cope and how did you manage with that?
Yeah, so I was definitely terrified.
Yeah.
When I first moved into the refuge, my first night, after they'd done all the intake, the first question was, so where are you going after this? Like, it was already planning for the future, and I didn't have the capacity to do that. And I remember I went up to my room and I started crying. I just laid there and I cried, and I came back down later and for my medication, tear-stricken, red eyes, and they asked me what's up, and I said nothing, I'm fine, and took my medication and marched back up the stairs, slammed the door, and got up bright and early for school the next day because didn't want to be there, but I had nowhere else to be. But as time progressed, I eventually did feel safer. I felt safer, and I was living with 4 strangers, 4 people I'd never met before.
The other residents.
The other residents there,
that's
and there were staff members there all the time, which was lovely. And then moving into transitional was the leap. It was, you've gone from 24/7 support to, well, if a possum's in your roof, you got to call someone. Someone's not going to call them for you. It was the whole new level of adulting.
Of course.
And trying to negotiate differences between housemates, trying to accommodate for everyone's needs, everyone's capacity, everyone's capabilities, trying to work through squabbles. But we always had a caseworker who was able to guide us through those problems, and through house meetings we were able to work things out. And sometimes housemates just weren't compatible. They got moved into different programs, which is unfortunate, but it happens. And it's the way everyone stayed the most comfortable in their circumstances.
Can I just, like, when you think about like transitional providing you time and space and kind of that security, what else has that program done to kind of prepare you, I guess?
Prepare me. So I pay rent, which looks pretty good on my
rental ledger.
Rental ledger. I can walk up and go, look, I've paid rent consistently for however long. Well, I'm moving into a 5-year program soon, so that I'll have 7 years of paying rent behind me and go,
congratulations,
look at this.
That's super exciting.
Thank you very much. I'm pretty stoked.
You should be.
So absolutely. In transitional housing, I learnt budgeting skills, which has become really helpful in day-to-day life.
I'll bet, absolutely.
Because I love to purchase little knickknacks.
Don't we all?
I should set up a little trinket shelf for these little Mofussan figurines that came out, the little cats with the hats. Oh, everywhere in my house.
I love that.
But it's been pretty crucial keeping to a budget, so my savings doesn't go into poor financial decisions. Because I'm very prone to that. And it's been really beneficial being able to have the money put aside for groceries, so I can get adequate groceries to survive me the fortnight. I'm able to do things with friends. Obviously, there's always a stress of finances because the world's expensive these days, but I'm living as comfortably as I can financially due to learning budgeting. And I'm able to do my groceries. I learnt living skills, how to store foods, a lot of things that people find really simple. I didn't know pillowcases had to be washed once a week. That was something revelating to me. And I was like, damn, do I do it? Probably not.
I was about to say, do they? Do they need to do that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard, like, it's once a week.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess you are sticking your head on it every
I don't even
every
think
night.
I don't think about it either.
Oh, no.
It's fine. I'm 17. I can make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
But I think what I'm hearing from you, Quinn, is like this program, it, like you said, it provides that security and that certainty for a time so that you can breathe and kind of start to consider the future. But there's also there's a guidance, there's a teaching, because I guess for better or for worse, you are required to grow up earlier than others, and someone needs to teach you that kind of stuff. And so there's a learning in that. It's so much more than just the four walls, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, which is incredible. It's a great program.
It is. It's amazing.
Thanks so much. Love it.
And we're pausing, right?
That's the pause. Go for it.
Oh, I thought we were that's what. Oh.
No, that's fine.
That's why I'm like
Stop.
stop.
Back on. Let's go.
Go.
Oh.
Just go.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Put me on the spot. No, I had it. Oh.
On the spot.
No, sorry. No, I meant like I was expecting to pause and then I was gonna. So I guess the last question, and the last question we're asking all of our guests. So, in your mind, what does a future where homelessness does not exist look like to you?
Well, realistically, we're not going to have that future without adequate supports. It's not just going to disappear overnight. The first thing we need is awareness.
Yeah.
People aren't aware as to how frequent youth homelessness is and how many people it actually happens to. Another thing we need is adequate supports for families, for those who want to keep families together.
Yeah.
Or if it's a circumstance where the family unfortunately can't stay together. Adequate and almost instant support for where that young person can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appropriate funding as well is super important, because one of the reasons homeless young people don't receive the help they need in the correct time frame is because there's not enough funding. I once got told by one of my caseworkers that I was a success story, and I thought about that and I was like, that's cool, but I'm just a young person who was provided adequate housing. I was given what I needed, but there isn't enough funding for everyone
to receive that.
Yeah. And a future without youth homelessness would stem from funding and awareness.
Yeah.
And programs as well.
Yeah. I think you're not the first person to bring up awareness and I guess opening up that conversation around what youth homelessness is, and I think it really ties into what you were sharing with us earlier, Quinn, around those stigmas, those misconceptions, preconceived notions that people have around youth homelessness, and the only way that we're going to break those down is to open up the conversation, which is obviously what we're seeking to do here on the podcast, is just share stories, hear people's insights, listen to their experiences, and I guess even for a moment, even if it's just 30 minutes on a podcast, walk a little bit in someone else's shoes, or at least hear what it's like to walk in their shoes, and hopefully that conversation definitely starts something.
Yes. I find it incredibly empowering being here today and sharing my story, because touching back to some point in the podcast, we were talking about how not a lot of young people are believed.
Yeah.
This sort of reaffirms that I'm believed, and it's a huge point for me healing to sit here and go, here is some of my story, to raise awareness.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Like, it's been an honor to hear your story and to be able to kind of sit here and just listen and learn from you.
Thank you.
And I think on that as well is, I thank you as well, because from someone that's never experienced the transitional or the crisis side, it really stood out to me and gives me a better understanding of what that process is like, and the emotional toll, and what it is like for, young people that are like 12 to 24 years of age. Like that's crazy. And you say you grow up, and that's a big part of it. But it's just so incredible that you have gotten through and where you are now. So you should be super proud of yourself.
Thank you so much.
No, that's all right.
I'm just going to add, so Quinn wrote a poem Is it okay that I mentioned this?
You can mention it.
Quinn wrote a poem for her HSC creative writing, wasn't it?
I think it was my
year 11.
Year 10.
Oh, year 10
it was
even.
my year 10. What's it called? The mandatory tests that you have to do to see if you're smart
Like the-
enough.
The NAP plan?
No.
No? Rosa? Anyway,
anyway.
it was for school. She wrote this beautiful poem about what home is, and I wept. Like, it was the most incredible thing ever. It's always a delight to listen to Quinn and hear the way she speaks about your experience, and you're a delight, Quinn, and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for joining us on today's podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, anytime.
The Beyond Homelessness podcast is brought to you by Project Youth, a community-based charity serving the young people of the Sutherland Shire and St. George area in Sydney, Australia. It is a series about young people, told by young people, and produced by young people. By listening today, you have supported the training and employment pathways for young people who are involved in the production of the podcast. Project Youth seeks to create a future where youth homelessness does not exist. If you'd like to know more about the work of Project Youth, the stories of the young people we support, or find ways in which you can be involved, head to our website at projectyouth.org.au or follow us on social media. See the bio for links.